Well, folks, welcome to another broadcast. Trust that you're benefiting from these short meditations on different aspects of Christian teaching. We're going to be looking this morning at the teaching that we were thinking about in our last broadcast, the character of God. We have seen that if we are ever going to be able to understand what God is like or who he is, that God has to tell us what he is like, that we can't make up our own God as so many people do today. And when we go to the Bible reveals to us many different what we call attributes of God, or things that are true about God. And this morning we're going to be thinking about God being infinite. God being infinite. God, of course, is not flesh and bones the way you and I are. Jesus said God is spirit. Yes, the Bible does speak of God's eyes and God's ears and God's mouth. It speaks of God's hands. It speaks of God's voice. But those are what are known as anthropomorphisms. Now, that's a big word, but it simply means attributing human characteristics or human behaviour to God. And the Bible does that. God does that in the Bible to help us to better understand him and his ways. He's not saying that he has hands, he has ears, he has a mouth. He uses this language in order to communicate with us. The Bible in Colossians chapter 1 and verse 17 says that God upholds all things. He is the one in whom everything consists. In the book of Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1, the Bible starts with these words, "In the beginning, God." It presupposes the existence of God prior to and outside of everything that has been created. It's very difficult for we who are finite to get our heads around and to grasp the concept of a being who is infinite. We have a beginning, we have an ending. Everything that exists had a beginning, and no doubt in time it will all come to an end. But God exists outside of time. He exists outside of the universe. God was there before time and before the universe was even created. He existed before our world came into being, because he was the one who brought it into being. God never had a beginning. The question that's often asked, who created God, is a nonsense question if God is infinite, as indeed the Bible teaches he is, and as we believe he is. Not only had God no beginning, he also has no ending. You and I get older with the passing of time, and there'll come a point in time when, insofar as our life in this world goes, it will come to an end. God will never come to an end. God does not get older with the passing of time. Trying to understand God is a bit like trying to catch the wind in a butterfly net. It's so impossible. One of the names by which God has revealed himself in the Bible is I am. That's the English translation of the Hebrew, and we express it in the term Yahweh or Jehovah. I am points to God's always having existed and continuing to exist. God is always and has always been there. No past, no future. Always an eternal present. I am. Now, one writer has said, to admit that there is a being who lies beyond us, who exists outside of all our categories, who will not be dismissed with a name, who will not appear before the bar of mere human reason, nor submit to our curious inquiries. This requires a great deal of humility, more than most of us possess. God can never, ever be brought down to our level so that we can fully understand him. And when we think of the infinity of God always having and always existing, it is something that is not irrational, but it is beyond our ability to reason it out. The reason for that is because our minds are limited. And the thought of such a being should cause us to worship and to praise and to adore this being. We're going to see this with all the attributes of God. They should cause us to be lost in wonder and love and praise for such a glorious and amazing being whom we can call Father. Join me in our next episode whenever we look at another of the attributes of God. Every blessing.